Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. A couple of notes. ARPA stands for Advanced Research Projects Agency. JSON is a name for a group of scientists, mostly, well, entirely academics, who would meet in the summers to advise the U.S. government on matters, scientific matters of top importance, starting with the nuclear program and physicists. The particle beam was a creation of Nick Christopoulos, a brilliant and eccentric thinker. Christopoulos's charged particle beam had a sort of Buck Rogers death ray image, and Project Seesaw, despite not making sense, was the most enduring specific project ever supported by the agency. What kept it alive was that no one could prove that it wouldn't work. And every time another obstacle arose, they said, Christopoulos came up with another solution. Each solution requiring further intensive investigation. They quoted Herb York saying, Nick was a remarkable idea man. The ideas were usually not good, but they were really remarkable in that they were the kind of ideas that nobody else had. The ARPA historians add in a footnote, one of Christopoulos's not good ideas was to build a large aircraft runway across the entire U.S., coast to coast, so that the Soviets could never catch most of the Strategic Air Command aircraft on the ground at the same time. Nicholas Christopoulos was one of the few national lab scientists to be a JSON. His ideas ranged from technically sweet to cosmically goofy. His photos from around 1960 show a dark man with slicked back hair and a certain presence. He looked like a portly movie star. He looked approachable and compelling, as though he could talk you into things. He was fat, sort of small and fat, said Freeman Dyson, and 200% Greek, and always talked with tremendous enthusiasm about whatever he was doing. Nick Christopoulos was born in America, but raised in Greece, where he got an engineering degree, though not a PhD. He worked for an elevator maintenance business, which he later owned, and which, when the Germans occupied Greece, became a truck repair business. The work wasn't that interesting, so he read papers in physics journals, particularly papers on the design of accelerators. Machines like the cyclotron, in which atoms were collided so hard they splattered, and their debris analyzed for subatomic particles. He came up with a design for one of these accelerators, wrote it up in a letter, and sent it to the Berkeley lab. Unknown to Christopoulos, his accelerator had already been invented, so Berkeley set the letter aside and forgot it. 2 years later, Christopoulos wrote a second letter, describing yet another, more complex accelerator. The Berkeley lab couldn't figure out what he was saying, and set this one aside too. 2 more years went by, and Ernst Courant at Brookhaven National Laboratory published a paper inventing the accelerator that Christopoulos had described in his second letter. Courant called it the Cosmotron, and Brookhaven later built it. Christopoulos happened upon Courant's paper and wrote a third letter that said he'd already invented the Cosmotron. The Berkeley scientists found his paper in their files, Courant wrote, but they had examined it superficially and dismissed it as one of the many crackpot letters that laboratories get. They and we were most embarrassed, and we published a letter in the Physical Review acknowledging Christopoulos's priority. Christopoulos was paid for his trouble and was offered a job at Brookhaven that, in 1953, he took. Wow.